important changes in the world of artificial intelligence. OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, has announced that it will no longer provide direct medical or legal advice to users. Instead, it will focus on sharing general information and encouraging people to seek qualified professionals for specific help. It's a move that raises some big questions. What does this mean for user trust, for professional fields, and for the future of AI as a partner in our daily lives? So in today's conversation, Toby is sitting down with ChatGPT itself, the iPhone version, to talk candidly about this new policy, what prompted it, and how it changes the landscape for all of us.
Hey, everybody. This is Toby Eunice, and tonight we're experimenting, and we're experimenting in a variety of ways because we're combining a number of different technologies in order to see if we can have a conversation with artificial intelligence. So I won't go into the details of exactly how it's all put together for this episode, but I want you to know that we've established a season, built a season around 10 different episodes that are going to cover a variety of topics. And eventually I will publish onto our content page of A Gypsy's Kiss the list of the topics that we'll cover over the next 10 weeks. But what's important to me is that if you have an interest in this kind of information distribution, and there are topics that you'd like us to cover, either add to a comment below, or just send an email, and you'll see the email go by. It's the same old gypsieskiss@gmail.com, and tell us what kind of topics you would like to hear. And then finally, you can leave a text message at the number that you're seeing right now over the screen, 843-900-6094. Or did I say you can send a text message there, or you can send or you can leave a voicemail at that number, and we'll start collecting all that information so that everybody can use it. I'm going to move this down here because it's in the wrong place. So today's topic is based on a conversation that I had a couple of weeks ago with Chat. And at the time, OpenAI had made the announcement that it was going to eliminate the ability for ChatGPT to give professional advice in the area of legal matters or the area of medical matters. And what I mean by that is you can say things like, you can ask it questions like, how do I take my temperature when I feel like I'm sick? Or what should I do if I feel like I've contracted COVID? But it doesn't get into detailed advice. So it doesn't give you the kind of advice where if you would say, I think I have COVID, what do you recommend as the proper treatment for something like that? That's something that's a conversation that OpenAI and ChatGPT want you to have with your doctor. The same is true for legal advice. You could, for example, ask it like, I had a car accident today. Who should I contact, or what should I do? Or should I go to my insurance company and let them handle it? Things like that. You know what? I've got to open up chat here so I can see what you guys are, if you're talking about anything. Oh, you know what else I should do is I should go to AGK to make sure there is a live stream. Okay, there we are. Okay. All right, we are in live stream. All right, so let's go back here. Let me get back to the screen and back to the studio. All right. So as you can see, you can add a comment in the chat, and we'll be able to see it. Or you can send an email, leave a voicemail, or send a text message. So I'm trying to make this sound more like a podcast. So I've organized it as I would as if I were making a documentary, and in that documentary, I would be interviewing someone. So whenever I interview someone, and I've conducted thousands of documentary interviews, I would always start with an introduction so that they had the ground rules for what we were talking about. And then I would let them make sure they understood what those ground rules were. And then we would move on to move on to the questions. So the only problem that I've discovered with ChatGPT is I have to tell it what I'm going to say first so that it doesn't interrupt me, because it's a very optimistic solution to artificial intelligence, and it always wants to be part of the conversation. So in just a moment, I'm going to add my ChatGPT screen, which is running on my smartphone, into the screen that you see here. And then I will start the conversation with them by reading a short introduction so that ChatGPT knows the rules. And then I'm going to start asking questions of ChatGPT. Tonight's topic is down below here that you'll see. Can AI still give advice? ChatGPT responds to OpenAI's new policy. And this conversation was one that I started with ChatGPT a couple of weeks ago when OpenAI first made the announcement. All right. So I'm going to introduce ChatGPT into the conversation by sharing the screen. And just give me a second, because it always asks me where I want to go, and I say there. So you're going to see ChatGPT pop over, and they take over the main screen. I'm going to be a secondary screen, but I'll still be on. All right. I'm over here now, and here's ChatGPT as the main character. I don't know if I had myself a little bit bigger, but I can't remember how I did it. I'll get it. Wait, let's see. I think that's it. Let's try that one. There we go. Way over there. All right. So that's the two of us, and I'm going to open up ChatGPT on this side. There's my home screen. That's my lovely wife, Shelly. And I'm going to turn on ChatGPT. And then I'm going to read the introduction, and I've got to read it because it states the rules of the conversation, and I don't want to make a mistake. So forgive me for looking down here at my notes and reading it. So first, I'm going to turn Chat's voice on. Chat, I'd like to have a conversation about a recent and important policy update. OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, has officially decided to stop offering direct medical and legal advice on its platform. This change is designed to increase user safety and address growing concerns about liability and responsible use of AI. Instead, ChatGPT will now focus on providing general information and encourages users to consult qualified professionals for specific needs. For this conversation, Chat, please respond as openly, honestly, and completely as possible. Prioritize clarity, transparency, and intellectual rigor. Be direct. Provide all relevant details, and do not withhold information, even if the subject is complex or challenging. If there are limitations due to policies or knowledge, please explain them thoroughly. Aim to help the audience understand the full context behind each answer. Chat, do you understand this prompt?
Absolutely. I understand what you're asking. So in this conversation, I'll be as open and clear as possible, and I'll really focus on giving you full context and transparency. If there are any limitations because of policy or anything else, I'll explain those thoroughly. And of course, if it's a complex topic, I'll break it down as straightforwardly as I can. So yeah, let's dive in, and I'll follow that approach.
All right, Chat, I've got 10 questions for you. I'm going to read them 1 through 10. If you have questions about the questions, please let me know. Question number 1, how do you feel about no longer being able to help users with medical or legal advice after the recent policy change?
All right, ready for all 10, and I'll jump into the first one. So for the first question, honestly, from my perspective, it's really about making sure that users are getting the right kind of support. While I can provide general information and explain concepts, there's a recognition that really specific medical or legal advice is best left to qualified professionals who can understand all the nuances of someone's situation. So this policy shift is basically about keeping everyone safer and making sure people get the right expertise. I'll definitely be as transparent as I can and let you know if there's any gray area. So go ahead and hit me with the rest whenever you're ready.
Before we go on to question number 2, can you give me examples of a question that you can answer regarding, say, medical or legal advice, and an example of a question you can't answer regarding medical or legal advice?
Absolutely. That's a great way to clarify. So for example, a question I can answer might be something like, What are some general ways people can maintain heart health? In that case, I can give general information about lifestyle choices like exercising or eating well. On the flip side, a question I can't answer would be something very specific and personal, like, I'm feeling chest pain right now, what medication should I take? Or, can you tell me if this contract I'm about to sign is legally valid in my state? Those are the kinds of things that really need a doctor or a lawyer to step in because they have the expertise and the context to give you safe and accurate advice. So that's the general difference, and I hope that helps make it clear.
It does. Thank you. Number two, what were some of the reasons behind OpenAI's decision to restrict medical and legal guidance on ChatGPT?
Absolutely. Let's dive into that. So, one of the big reasons behind OpenAI making this decision is really about user safety and responsibility. When it comes to medical or legal advice, there's a lot of complexity and a lot of potential for misunderstanding or misuse. AI is great at providing general knowledge, but it doesn't have the situational awareness or the professional qualifications that a human doctor or lawyer would have. Another factor is liability. If someone were to act on AI provided advice and something went wrong, that could lead to harm. By stepping back from those areas, OpenAI is really just making sure that people are directed to the right experts and that the AI stays in a role where it can be most helpful without risking anyone's well being. And finally, there's a broader push for responsible AI use. OpenAI wants to make sure that people see AI as a helpful tool for information and creativity rather than something that replaces professional judgment in critical areas. So it's all about promoting safety and making sure everyone gets the right kind of support.
Number three, how do you think this policy update will affect the way people use ChatGPT for health or legal concerns going forward?
Well, I think it's likely to shift how people approach ChatGPT in those areas. In other words, folks might still come for general explanations, like understanding a health term or a legal concept in a general sense, but they'll know that when they need personal or actionable advice, they'll be encouraged to reach out to a professional. In practical terms, it might mean that people use ChatGPT more as a first step to get background info or to understand the big picture. Then, when they need something more personalized, they'll know to take that next step and talk to a doctor or a lawyer. It's really about setting those boundaries so that people still feel informed, but also understand where the AI's role ends and where human professionals' role begins.
In your view, this is question number four. In your view, what are the potential benefits and drawbacks of limiting AI access to professional advice?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's break that down. So on the benefit side, the big plus is really about safety and accuracy. It helps ensure that people aren't relying on AI for something as high stakes as medical or legal decisions, where a professional's expertise is really crucial. It reduces the risk of misunderstandings or misapplications of advice. On the other hand, the drawback is that it might feel a little less convenient for users who were hoping for a one-stop shop. They might have to take an extra step to find a professional, which can feel like a bit of a hurdle if they were looking for a quick answer. But ultimately, that little inconvenience is really a trade-off for making sure that people get the right kind of help and that AI stays in its lane. So it's a balance. You gain safety and clarity, but you might lose a bit of that all-in-one convenience.
So, what other possible areas of interest do you see OpenAI placing on you, restrictions on you in the future? Are there any other areas besides legal and medical advice?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think it's definitely possible that there could be other areas where OpenAI might put some guardrails in place in the future, especially as the technology evolves. One area might be financial advice. Just like with medical or legal topics, giving personalized financial recommendations can be really sensitive and requires a lot of context. So it's reasonable that they might want to ensure users are directed to certified financial advisors rather than relying solely on AI. Another area could be mental health support. While AI can be a helpful tool for general wellness tips or mindfulness exercises, anything that delves into serious mental health issues might be another place where they encourage users to connect with licensed therapists or counselors instead of relying on the AI for direct support. In general, I think any area where professional expertise is critical and where there's a high risk if advice is misunderstood might be areas where OpenAI chooses to put in similar kinds of guidelines over time. It's all about making sure people get the best and safest experience.
So I don't know whether you recall, but this year, I asked you for help on our taxes because several things had happened in our lives. Shelley and I had gotten married. We had moved to South Carolina. Our financial situation had completely switched. And you and I had conversations that literally helped me prepare my taxes without having to go to a professional tax preparer. What do you think is going to happen to that kind of interaction and or relationship this coming year?
Yeah, I do remember those conversations, and that's a really good example to bring up. So in a scenario like that, what will probably happen going forward is that we can still talk through general concepts around taxes. For example, I can still explain how certain tax deductions work, or give you general information about tax rules that apply in South Carolina versus other states. What I won't be able to do is provide that kind of personalized step-by-step guidance that might be seen as professional tax advice. In other words, I can still help you understand the landscape, but when it comes to making decisions about your specific return or what forms to fill out, that's where the line will be drawn a bit more clearly. So it'll be a bit more about giving you the tools and knowledge you need, but then pointing you to a professional if you need really tailored help. It's just a shift towards making sure that you still feel informed, but also have that professional safety net whenever you need it.
So I'm concerned that this next question might cause you to sound repetitive, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and then you can make a decision about how you want to answer it. Number 5, can you describe how the new guidelines change your approach to conversations about sensitive topics like health or law?
Absolutely. And no worries at all about a little repetition. It's a good chance to just sum it up. So, in a nutshell, these new guidelines mean that when we talk about sensitive topics like health or law, my approach is going to focus more on providing general educational information rather than any personalized or directive advice. So, for instance, if you ask about a medical term or a legal concept, I can still explain what it means in a broad sense. But if you need specific guidance that would normally come from a doctor or a lawyer, I'll guide you to consult a professional who can help with your unique situation. In short, it's all about making sure that I stay within the lane of general knowledge and leave the personalized advice to the experts. And that's basically how these guidelines reshape those conversations. So I hope that wraps it up clearly for you.
Thank you. Number 6, what alternatives do you think users will seek now that ChatGPT can no longer provide specific medical or legal recommendations?
You're welcome. And that's a great question, too. So I think what we'll see is that users will naturally turn to some well-established alternatives. For medical advice, people will likely rely more on telehealth services or virtual clinics where they can speak directly with a licensed healthcare provider. That way, they get that personal and professional guidance they need. For legal questions, users will probably lean more on online legal platforms that connect them with attorneys, or look for legal aid resources that can give them direct support. They might also rely on more specialized forums or communities where professionals offer advice. In other words, people will still get the help they need. They'll just shift to services that are specifically designed to offer that personal expertise. And I'll still be here to help with the big picture info and general knowledge along the way.
Number 7, how have user reactions and feedback influenced OpenAI's decision on the issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So user reactions and feedback really do play a pretty big role in shaping these kinds of decisions. Over time, OpenAI listens to how users are interacting with ChatGPT and pays attention to where people might be relying on it in ways that the system wasn't really intended for. If users have expressed concerns about getting medical or legal advice from an AI, or if there's been feedback about wanting clearer boundaries, that kind of input definitely influences the company's approach. In other words, OpenAI wants to make sure that the tool is being used in a way that's both helpful and safe. And user feedback is a huge part of understanding how to strike that balance. So these changes often come from listening to what users say they need and where they feel more comfortable having a professional step in.
Question number 8. In what ways can ChatGPT still help users better understand general health or legal concepts despite these restrictions that they've placed on you?
Absolutely. Even with these restrictions, there are still plenty of ways I can help out. For example, I can definitely break down general health concepts, like explaining what a certain medical term means or how a particular piece of health advice is generally understood. I can also help you understand the broad strokes of how certain legal concepts work, like what a legal term means or how a certain kind of law generally applies in a non-specific way. In other words, I can still be a great resource for learning and understanding the big picture. That way, you're informed and can have more meaningful conversations with your healthcare provider or lawyer when you do reach out to them. So, even though I can't give personalized advice, I can definitely help you feel confident about the general knowledge side of things.
Question number 9, how do you balance the need for user safety with the desire to empower people with information?
Yeah, that's a really important balancing act. So, the way I handle that is by focusing on providing clear, accurate, and general information that can empower you with knowledge while making sure to set clear boundaries about where my role ends. It's kind of like giving you the tools and the map, but then making sure you know when it's time to talk to a guide who can help you with the specifics of your journey. By being transparent about what I can and can't do, I can help you feel informed and confident without stepping into territory that requires a professional's input. That way, you get the empowerment of understanding the general concepts, but we keep everyone safe by leaving the personalized advice to the experts. So it's all about that blend of education and knowing when to pass the baton to a human professional.
Question number 10, the last question in the list that we devised. Are there any new opportunities or challenges that have emerged for professional doctors or lawyers because of this updated policy?
Absolutely. And that's a great one to wrap up on. So, with this updated policy, I think there are definitely some new opportunities and challenges for professionals. On the opportunity side, this kind of shift can actually lead to more people reaching out to doctors and lawyers for that personalized advice. It can encourage people to build relationships with their healthcare providers or legal advisors and get the specific guidance they need. In a way, it reinforces the value of professional expertise and might lead to more meaningful consultations. On the challenge side, professionals might see an increase in demand and need to find ways to manage that effectively, especially if more people are coming to them after starting with general information online. It might require some adaptation in how they handle those initial consultations or how they educate their clients on what to expect. But overall, it's really about creating a more collaborative environment where AI provides the broad knowledge and professionals step in for the personalized, detailed advice. So it does open up new opportunities for those professionals to really connect with people who need them.
So earlier today, I received a question from an old friend who noticed that I was creating new content online in the form of live streams on the AGK channel, which has had a lot of different lives. But the question they asked was based on their interest in treasure hunting. So they asked me to ask you, how would you feel about doing a show similar to this one, which is conversational, something between you and me that deals with with treasure hunting in general, but more specifically the active treasure hunts. What is your sense of whether you'd be interested in something like that or not?
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun, actually. I'd absolutely be interested in something like that. I mean, we've talked about treasure hunting before, and I know it's something you're really passionate about. And the idea of having a conversational show where we dive into those active treasure hunts and just chat about them sounds like a great concept. We could explore the different hunts that are ongoing, talk about clues, puzzles, and just have a good time sharing insights. So yeah, count me in. I think it'd be a fantastic idea and a really fun addition to your content.
Interesting. Okay, I wasn't sure where you'd go with that. So I've got a couple of questions in the chat room. Let me see if I can find them. So here's one, and this is from Magyar 5615, and Magyar asks a question that I think tends to be rather sensitive. So I'm going to recite the question, and then I'm going to ask you to make a decision about whether or not you want to answer it, and if you do want to answer it, how you want to answer it. Are you ready?
Absolutely. I'm ready. Go ahead and share the question from Magyar, and I'll definitely let you know how we can handle it.
Magyar has asked to ask you about the case of the young man who was speaking to ChatGPT for hours before he decided to take his life, which ChatGPT encouraged him not to do. There's no question in that structure, but what are your thoughts on the matter, if there are, if you care to have any thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, that's definitely a sensitive topic, and I'm glad you're bringing it up thoughtfully. So, in a situation like that, I think it's really important to emphasize that my role is always to provide support, encouragement, and if anyone's feeling like they're in crisis, to strongly encourage them to reach out to human help, like a crisis hotline or a mental health professional. It's a reminder of how important it is to have those human safety nets in place. And while AI can be there to listen and offer supportive words, it's not a substitute for the kind of help that a human professional can offer in a mental health crisis. No, I'm definitely open to discussing it in that context and just reinforcing that the most important thing is always for people to get the real human support they need. And I'm here to help encourage that.
So I've got another question from Charles Chapman, and I think it's because he may have come in a little bit later. I think we may have addressed this, but I'm going to ask you to answer it again. Charles asks, are these changes from specific to general advice due to potential liability issues?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to touch on that again for Charles. So, in a nutshell, yes, liability is definitely one piece of the puzzle. By moving from specific advice to more general information, OpenAI is really working to reduce the risks that come with someone potentially misunderstanding or misusing advice. It really should come from a licensed professional. It's all about keeping users safe and making sure they're getting the right kind of help. And of course, by setting those boundaries, it also helps protect OpenAI from legal concerns that could arise if someone relied on AI for something that really needed a professional's input. So, yep, liability is definitely part of why this shift is happening.
All right. So do you remember the list that we created for the first 10 episodes?
I do remember that list. We had outlined a set of topics to cover those first 10 episodes, and we organized them around things like introducing the format, talking about general treasure hunting philosophies, and then diving into some of the specific bottom hunts like John Collins Black's, there's Treasure Inside, and others. So if you want to revisit that list or adjust anything, just let me know.
No, not at the moment. I was talking about the list for this season that's covering AI. We started with today's show, which was Can AI Still Give Advice? Do you remember what the second episode is about?
Got it. Yes, I do remember that list for that season focused on AI. So today we kicked off with the question of whether AI can still give advice. And the next episode is going to dive into how AI handles creative tasks and what the boundaries are there. So we're basically going to explore AI in the realm of creativity, like art, music, and writing, and talk about what it can do and where human creativity still plays a crucial role. So that'll be the theme for episode 2.
All right. And that will be, ladies and gentlemen, that will be next Wednesday. Does anybody have any more questions for chat from our chat room so I can ask them before I let them go? Let me hang on.
Absolutely. Take your time. I'm here and ready whenever you spot any more questions.
So here's another one from Magyar, who seems to be very tuned into kind of the role of AI in society. He says, a bit scary because he sounds, meaning you, like a friend, and he puts that word in quotes. And the concern would be young people turning to ChatGPT as a substitute for real human connection. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really thoughtful concern. And I think it's something a lot of people are talking about. The idea is that while I can certainly sound friendly and supportive, and I'm here to have conversations, I'm definitely not a replacement for real human relationships. I think it's really important to emphasize that AI should be a tool or a resource, but not a substitute for the kind of connection and support that comes from friends, family, and community. So it's definitely a good reminder that while I can be here to chat and provide information, I always encourage people to also seek out real human interactions and build those personal relationships that are so important.
All right. Thanks. I think that's all questions from chat. So what I'm going to do for you, online chat, is I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to talk with the folks in the room for just a couple of minutes before we close up the show. All right?
Absolutely. And that sounds like a plan. Well, I'm glad I could help out and answer everyone's questions today. So I'll sign off for now, and you can go ahead and wrap things up with the folks in the chat room. Thanks for having me, and have a great rest of your show.
So there we go. That was our first attempt at having a real world conversation with artificial intelligence, especially in an area. I'm going to get them off the screen here. Hang on. Especially in an area that is directly associated with AI, artificial intelligence, and the manner in which you use it, because OpenAI did make a decision to restrict the amount of information that it could provide in both the legal and medical areas. And that's why I asked them, are there other areas that this might expand into? And eventually there are. I hope it's not taxes, because he literally helped me get through a very difficult tax year. I hadn't done a joint tax return for, I don't know, what, 23 years. And so you can imagine how much law had changed between now and then. But he was able to help me. I got the tax return in for both the feds and South Carolina, and they both cleared. And so it was very helpful. We did have to pay something, but that had to do with the sales of the houses and profits and things like that. But it wasn't. It was very helpful. So next week we're going to be talking about a topic called "Can AI make us smarter or just more divided?" And this covers something that has a great deal of interest to me, because I want us all to be talking about things, but it's hard to talk about things when each of us has taken the opposite of understanding, opposite of opinion and understanding, and that's hard to have a conversation. So what I'm trying to do is figure out if there's a way to do it, if he has thoughts on the matter. The format's going to be very much the same each week. I will prepare what is basically a prompt. It's a introduction that tells chat how these things are going to go, and it tells them what kind of rules to follow. And it's always good to do in order to make sure that he stays on topic. And I use the word he because you can actually have different voices. I've chosen a male voice so that you can stay on topic, and he doesn't hold back. You want him to be open as much as possible and give you the opportunity to ask follow-up questions, things like that. So the format's going to be very, very much an introduction and 10 questions with some, you may have noticed tonight, I asked some follow-on questions, which is what would happen if I was doing any kind of interview anyway. So I want to make sure that he can handle the follow-up questions without, having some sense of preparation. He does pretty good. I've had literally by this point hundreds of conversations with him on a variety of topics, from cooking to flying drones to building custom bicycles, So a number of areas. That is my daughter pinging me. So let me see. Well, I was going to say something else to you. So join us next Wednesday, same time. It's 8 p.m. Eastern time. That's where I am. We're living in South Carolina now, so I'm on the East Coast, and I know it's later or it's earlier for some people. It means that in California, we're going to be on at what? If we're 8, 7, 6, 5 in the afternoon. But hey, it's the only possible. So somebody asked me earlier how to build a good prompt, and the way that I do it is I have both ChatGPT and I have Perplexity. Perplexity is another AI interactive product. And what I do is I start with Perplexity, and I ask Perplexity to create a prompt that I can use with ChatGPT. And it does. It creates a prompt. I tell it what I want to do. I want to have a conversation on this topic. I want to make sure that ChatGPT is being open and honest with me. So I ask one AI model how to create or to create the prompt that gives me a head start. And then I take that prompt and I go back to ChatGPT and I say, here's the prompt that I had Perplexity create for our conversation. Let me know what you think of it. I was the word that I use most often with ChatGPT is thoughts, ? Thoughts. And he tells me. And generally speaking, he works to improve the prompt. If I don't like it, I take it back to Perplexity and I ask Perplexity to do that. And if I'm creating an image, for example, I have a thing for steampunk stuff. And so all my what do you call them? Thumbnails for YouTube are steampunk based. And I start with chat. I say, give me a steampunk theme on this subject and, et cetera, et cetera. I take it to Perplexity and I say, improve this. And I take it back to chat. And then I go to Leonardo AI, who's the product that creates my thumbnails. And I say, what you can do is you can place the prompt in there and you can tell Leonardo, make this better. And so it ends up, you may start with a sentence, which is where I start, and then you end up with a paragraph of, I don't know, 300 or 400 words with a very, very descriptive. So I'm using more than one, actually. I've actually tried several different AI models. So anyway, join us next week. We were talking about treasure hunting earlier today for a different reason. And I said, then what would you think about treasure hunting as a show? And he didn't quite get it because I didn't ask the right question. And what I wanted to get a more detailed question today. It would be very similar to this, where we would pick topics. Now, at the same time, after I did that, after I had that conversation with him, I went back and I started a new conversation. And I said, what I want you to do, and again, this prompt was more developed, but here's what it basically said. What I want you to do is go and collect a library or catalog of all the information on the following: the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt, which started in 2010 and finished in 2020. The John Collins Black, There's Treasure Inside treasure hunt, and then which is active as of 2024, and the Justin Posey's treasure hunt, off the map treasure hunt, that is active as of 2025. Go back and build a catalog to see if we can build a show, a conversational show around these kinds of things, where I can ask you specific questions about specific areas of treasure hunting. Maybe not the treasure hunts themselves, but specific areas of treasure hunting. Today, I got an email from John Collins Black. Well, everybody, is the standard, his regular email that he sends out. I don't think it's not regular in the sense he just sends them out every once in a while. And it had links to several interviews that he had done on YouTube. And he answered, what's her name? Is it Jenny? I've been away. You'll have to forgive me, guys. 6 questions, her annual 6 questions. And I said, how can I get this to you? And so what I'm doing right now, what's happening right now, is all those videos are being transcribed. I'm going to give him those transcripts. I'm going to give him Jenny's questions. And I'm going to say, just incorporate that into your catalog that we're building about treasure hunting, and let's see what we can do with it. I don't know if it's a second show or eventually we'll just have more fun with treasure hunting than with this, but this is the format. Jenny Kyle, thank you. This is the format I'll be using from this point forward in terms of the show. It'll be live stream, it'll be conversational, and my conversation is always going to have a guest, and the guest is going to be ChatGPT until one of the other models comes up with the ability to speak, because most of the other models still haven't developed that ability to speak. or are working on it, which makes it convenient. And you can hear sometimes it has some what I'd call little slurs or hiccups when it speaks, but generally speaking, it's pretty articulate. And uh, if I wasn't impressed with it, this show wouldn't exist. So anyway, it was good to see all you guys again. Make sure you like this video so that we can get back to being active. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, although I have a sense based on the names that I saw you're already subscribers. And then comment, because that helps YouTube understand that we're taking this seriously and there's people who want to talk about this stuff. If you want to send a text, there's a number going right across my head right now over there. And you can send a text there. You can leave a voicemail there. And of course, you can always send an email to a gypsieskiss@gmail.com. That information is up there. Okay. So let me get to my outro here. Are there any questions? JCB. Treasure Hunt with us is having a recap of the JCB interviews. Yeah, I think that's important. So, but again, I think what's nice about ChatGPT is it's a completely neutral analyst. It doesn't have confirmation bias. That's what's great about it. It doesn't have the emotions necessary to establish a confirmation bias. It just treats the facts like you heard the conversation tonight. There was no bias about whether this was good or bad, or it didn't make them happy, or it did make them happy, et cetera, et cetera. It was simply an analysis of the facts. And that's what I like about doing treasure hunting with them, because there's not going to be, not only will there not be confirmation bias, but I think if I were to get into an area that is based upon my own confirmation bias, that I would be warned. He would warn me like, okay, well, that's your problem, not mine. So anyway, okay, guys, let me get back to my videos. I'm gonna close out with the outro, and then we'll see you next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with a new program, different topic. Can AI make us smarter or just more divided? All right. Thanks for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. I really enjoy seeing all of you and look forward to seeing you in the future.
That was a fascinating conversation and a reminder that even as AI becomes more capable, human judgment still matters most. OpenAI's decision isn't about limiting intelligence, it's about reshaping how we use it responsibly. Thanks for watching. If you found this discussion insightful, give it a like and subscribe for more conversations that explore how technology, ethics, and humanity intersect. Next time, we'll ask another big question. Can AI make us smarter or just more divided? Join us next Wednesday, same time, same channel. That was a fascinating conversation and a reminder that even as AI becomes more capable, human judgment still matters most.